Joining me now is a man who will make his MMA debut at Titan FC 68 March 26th. He is coming from the wrestling background. He's a U23 world champion freestyle wrestling for Team USA. He's from New Jersey, but training in Florida. Please welcome Richie Lewis to the show. Richie, thanks for joining me, man.
Of course, brother. Nice to meet you, Jeremy.
Yeah, you as well, buddy. Now, I was watching a few interviews with you. I watched the one with James Lynch, and I saw and listened and heard that you said that MMA might have been the transition straight from high school. I wanted to go way back, like take me through your childhood before even getting to high school. How did combat sports come into your life, like from a young age, elementary school and whatnot?
I started doing. My dad was a basketball coach as soon as I was born. He's a pretty legendary coach back in New Jersey. So I've always had an interest in basketball. My brother played basketball, but I was always more of a physical guy. So even when I was 5, my first sport they put me into was taekwondo. And that's really the only place where I found discipline on the court in school. I was always running around doing crazy stuff, but when I was in a dojo, I was always controlled and focused on my development. And then I continued to play basketball for my dad and my uncles, and then I would just always foul out of the game. So they're like, you know what, we're gonna put me in football. I was a small kid, and then my football coach ended up being Scott Winston's father, and Scott Winston, legendary wrestler out of New Jersey. At one time, he was the best high school wrestler to ever come out of New Jersey. Up until my teammates Nick Soriano and Anthony Ashnault won 4 state titles in a row, going undefeated. And he was like, man, if you want to be a professional athlete, and that's always what I wanted to do since I was a kid. He's like, he's probably not gonna do it playing football. He's too small. You should put him into wrestling. And then from there, the love of wrestling grew into a love of MMA. Back when like Chuck Liddell, Forrest Griffin, Tito Ortiz, and those guys were fighting, and I fell in love with it, man. And also, I used to get in a lot of street fights and a lot of trouble. Obviously, like most of the MMA fighters, trouble in school and always fighting. So I figured it was always my route. I'm a very intellectual guy, but I didn't do good in school. Like I couldn't sit down and focus. I skipped class and did
Yeah.
stuff like that. And I was so focused on my physical and mental development um, in different arenas that I couldn't really focus in school.
You mentioned there gotten into street fights like most MMA fighters. I'd say that's changed over the course of the last 10 years maybe. Most MMA fighters like the guys you mentioned like Chuck Liddell, Forrest Griffin, maybe those guys, but the new generation of MMA fighters seem like, they're more the book savvy kind of guys, the nerdy guys that got into MMA because they love sort of the technical aspect, the mindset of MMA rather than the physicality of it. And just talk me through the whole street fighting thing and coming up like that. Because is there anything that sticks out to you from the street fight that sort of led you down that path?
So the first things that I would say is I think that that's an edge that I have because I think that I really do have great technical analysis and a great understanding of the sport and love for the sport in itself. But I also, used to run the streets growing up, so I kind of have the best of the both worlds. That dog, and then I got that technical analysis, in my opinion. So I think it goes both ways. But yeah, growing up, you said how does street fights work?
No, like, is there any one that sticks out in your mind that really made you think, hey, I'm pretty good at this?
Yes, I mean, so when I was in seventh or eighth grade, there was a kid that I would always fight with, and I one time I got into one too many fights at school, and I actually got kicked out, and I had to go to court. I was gonna go to a detention center, but I was too young. I think I was like 13. So instead of sending me to a detention center, they had sent me to an alternate school, which is basically like a prison school. They come pick you up. You go through metal detectors. You
Oh
know,
man.
everyone's in there from 13 to 21, and you're there from like 8 to 4, and then they drop you back off your house. And I went there for like 3 months, and then I kind of knew after that fight, I'm like, man, like there's nothing I want to do but fight. And I was a little guy, so I just always wanted to prove myself, and I just like testing myself physically. I feel like there's different ways that you can measure a man, um, and one of the most primal ones is a fight. And instinctually inside me, that's what I love, and that's why I feel like there's a lot of money in this game. So obviously, I am looking to support my family, but without the money, I would still be doing this, man, just because I love it.
Definitely. Now, as I said, you mentioned with James Lynch that MMA might have been the path straight out of high school. What led you to the university level of wrestling rather than MMA?
I think I lost to one of my teammates, Anthony Ashnault, in the States, and I never accomplished my goal of becoming a state champion. So I definitely wanted to reach a higher level of wrestling. I wasn't satisfied with how my career ended. I ended up losing my senior year in high school, and then my mom is pretty conservative, so she really wanted me to go to college, at least get an education before I continued, and it was completely free. You know, I had scholarships and I was getting paid to go to school. They paid for my living, paid for my food, paid for my housing, and it was a good opportunity to develop as a person socially and in wrestling. And I knew long term, you know, Frank Edgar went to my high school. I went to Iowa Central where Kobe Covington, John Jones, Cain Velasquez, Carrington Banks, Phil Hawes, just really rich MMA history there. I kind of knew that I had all the connections to get into that world. So I, for once in my life, I listened to my mom and I went to college and it ended up paying off, man. I 10x'd in college, had a great career, had a decent time on the international scene. You know, obviously I didn't reach my ultimate goal of becoming an Olympic champion, but I won a world title in the process, so I'm happy, and it opened a bunch of doors for me, especially in the MMA community now.
Do you have a degree to fall back onto in the future?
Yeah, but I'm not going to use it. I trade. I day trade. I own a couple businesses. Like I said, if I didn't want to fight, I didn't have to. You know, I'm not a millionaire yet, but I'm on my way there without fighting. So I'm pretty comfortable.
I want to get into that business thing a little later, but we'll get to that after. One thing I do want to talk about, and it's not even MMA, man. I want to mark out on the fact that you got to train with the Danaher Death Squad because I'm a big BJJ guy. I've trained for the last like 12 years. I'm a brown belt up here
Me
in
too,
Vancouver.
dog.
Up here in Vancouver, I'm more of a gi guy than a no gi guy. I do train no gi, but dude, the fact that you got to train with Gordon Ryan and Gary Tonin and John Danaher and stuff like that, just tell me about that because those guys are killers in their own right. Not necessarily Gary Tonin in the MMA scene with one championship right now. Obviously, Gordon Ryan is the king of no-gi grappling. Just talk me through that because were you a jiu-jitsu guy going in to train with those guys or did they pique your interest?
No, so I'm a student of the game, and I'm a big nerd like we're talking about, and I kind of am a supreme developer where I know where I want to go, and it's not just throwing shit on the wall and see what sticks. It's this is what we're gonna do for a 5 year plan, and then we're gonna break it down to a 2 year plan, a 1 year plan, a 1 month plan, a quarterly plan by the day, and then by the practice, and then by the second in the practice. That's kind of how I developed things, and I knew how good I was at wrestling. I didn't really respect jiu-jitsu too much, but Gordon Ryan did catch my eye, and I knew how good that he was at jiu-jitsu. So when I was like 21 or 22, I was like, man, I'm gonna go train with Gordon Ryan after I'm done. I didn't really know Gary Tonin too well. I didn't know Danaher extremely well. I knew he was a great coach though, but I wanted to train with Gordon and learn under Gordon. And then it just came to fruition. I guess I just told my team, man, I'm gonna go train with Gordon, and he hit me up and was like, hey, you should come to New York City, come wrestle, come do this, help us get ready for ADCC, and we'll do jiu-jitsu with you. And I started going to the blue basement, and I was like, oh man, I'm about these guys are about to see what real grappling is about. And John is notorious for putting us in very bad positions to start the rounds. Like our first round, we have to start in mount, and you know, if you don't got to take me down, it's going to be a lot easier to submit me, right? If you're a pure BJJ guy, and he would put his blue belts on top of me and mount, and I would get tapped out. And then we would go to turtle, and I would get tapped out. And then we'd go to EBI overtime, and then we'd go to arm bars. And the first day, I was like, "What the fuck is going on?" I thought I was ready to win a UFC title. You know, I'm 22. I'm ready to win a UFC title right now.
Yeah.
What do you mean? I don't have any fights yet, you know, but that's the confidence that I have in myself. And it was definitely a learning experience. And I said, man, I got to do this for 2 years and train with these guys and get good and understand this game before I could even move on to striking and develop where I want to develop. Of course, you see a big downfall I see right now in MMA is a lot of these wrestlers transitioning. Sure, they're good. Sure, they can take guys down, but they sit in guys' guards. They can't apply pressure. They can't apply damage. And I think it's terrible. You could be an Olympic champion wrestler, and if you don't know how to slice guard and you don't know how to create dilemmas and put people in trouble, you know, you're not going to do nothing.
For sure. Is there anything that Gordon taught you specifically, not necessarily on the ground, but maybe like just his jiu-jitsu mindset that sticks out to you?
Yeah, I would say he taught me a lot of concept-based stuff. So, before I was even offensive, because, you can't really be offensive when you're in a room with killers and you're a blue belt or a white belt when I was first starting off, is becoming defensively sound. Because I couldn't really, if I put myself into a pass and then they leg locked or went to sweep, I'd be in a terrible position and not know what to do. So getting very defensively sound first and then executing on my offense. And it really took me like a year to develop to where I could go into the gym with a low heart rate and roll with these guys before I get tired in 2 or 3 minutes, just because I'd be going, 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 going. And I'd say John taught me that too. But yeah, and Gordon is so much himself that he's so comfortable in his skin. And all those guys at the Danaher Death Squad are so comfortable with who they are, from what I can see. And that kind of rubbed off on me a little bit. A big reason I'm down in Florida is because of Gary, John, and Gordon. Actually, when I first started going there was a guy named Asim Zaidi, who's actually my head coach, and he was training down. He was training up in New York City, and I just thought he was a regular guy that lived in New York City at the gym. And it turns out that he was just visiting from Miami for a couple months and staying with Gary, and then he brought me down to do clinics down here, and that's how I got down here. And I'm actually gonna head over to PR after my fight to do a little training and stuff. So their influence, John's influence specifically in my life has been monumental, whether he knows it or not.
Well, I'm sure he will know it after he sees you. He moved through this career of yours. Now, March 26th, Titan FC 68. I got to ask. So, a couple things. You're now training with Goat Shed Academy. You're also fighting for Titan FC. So, you spoke there when you were talking about your mindset. Planning months, days, hours, minutes. Like you're very logical when it comes to your mindset. How did it come into fruition to train with Goat Shed? Because it's a gym that maybe not a lot of people would have heard of until some big names have started to come out of it. What made you go down there and start to train with them? Also, what made you decide to sign with One FC or Titan FC?
So this is a multi-layered question, right?
Yes.
I've been all over the country training. I trained at Henzo Gracie Academy, obviously. I've trained at gyms around New Jersey. Mark Henry's been in the Rutgers Wrestling Room. I've been to AKA. I stayed at Uriah Faber's house and trained with Cody Garbrandt before he fought TJ Dillashaw. I used to go to American Top Team since I was 18, so I kind of got familiar with the Florida MMA scene, training with like Justin Poirier, back when Mirzad Bektik was here, Will Brooks, and then 2.5 years ago, training with Colby and Steve Mako. So I've been all over, man. And I'm very analytical in my decisions, and I weighed out all the options. And it was kind of like, man, what do we want to do? These guys don't like when you cross train. Hey, I own a couple businesses, so I have to have a certain amount of freedom because if I want to fly out to Arizona to train with Randy Steinke at MMA Lab for 3 weeks because I'm a huge fan of his. I'm going to set that up and I'm going to do that because I'm trying to make myself the best fighter in the world. And I have the resources to do it. And a lot of these other fighters don't have the resources to do it. So they have to apply this like false loyalty. Like, obviously, I'm with Ghost Shed 100%. I want to end my career there. But Asim understands the game. He's been all over the world too. He knows that you have to get the best coaches and different looks to learn things. And that's a big decision why I chose to be down at the Goat Shed.
I feel like that not necessarily loyalty, but locked to one gym is such an old school mindset.
Old school, man. And I'm not gonna say any names, but I've had gyms that were recruiting me since I was 19 years old, and big time gyms. And I show up at an event and do a clinic for a gym an hour away, and they're like, "Oh man, we don't like cross training. Sorry, you can't train here anymore." Guys that used to fly me out and to train with their fighters.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And so with Titan FC, I'm sure there were plenty of options on the table. What made you decide them?
So obviously the coach has got a great relationship with them. I think that I can really develop at Titan FC. We're down in Florida, so COVID isn't as bad. Uh, it's right around the corner. You know, it's maybe 5 minutes from the gym and 15 minutes from where I live. I like the promoter Lex. I think he's a really solid guy, and he helps develop guys. So that was a big reason of it. And I've also seen what he's doing for friends and teammates of mine. Of course, I would love to fight in Jersey, man, but there's barely any fans, you know.
Of course. Now we mentioned Titan FC 68 March 26 against Danny Vega. I know you don't care about who your opponent is, what they're going to do inside there, because obviously you got to focus on number one, and that's yourself. What can people expect out of you inside the cage? Because, you know, I hate to say it, but there's a syndrome when it comes to guys that are coming from a one faceted sport background. You know, I hate to say it's the George Gurgel syndrome, but the guy went in there as a BJJ guy and he tried to be a striker. What can people expect out of you? You're not going to come in there and simply be a wrestler. Obviously, it's your strong suit, but what can people expect?
You know, I'm looking to showcase my striking, honestly, and if I can't do that and I can't apply that pressure the way I want, then I'm gonna resort to my different resources and what I grew up doing. But I believe in this game. You know, I can't be scared to strike, and I have to be committed to learning. I'm still developing, so you could see anything out of me. You know, I'm a big feel guy, so if I feel like going in there and throwing leg kicks, I'm gonna throw leg kicks. If I'm gonna throw overhands, I throw overhands. I'm gonna throw straights, I'm gonna throw straights. If I'm gonna take them down in the first 5 seconds, that's what I'm gonna do. I kind of have a game plan in my head, but I would like to showcase some striking.
You said this was many years in the making to get to the MMA side of the game. How active do you want to be?
I mean, I've signed a multi-fight deal with Lex, so as active as he wants to use his platform to grow my career and as fast as I can fight. You know, as long as I'm healthy, I'm gonna be ready to go.
Now, I wanted to talk. You spoke about being a business guy, day trader, whatnot. You're dedicated your life to becoming a world champion, not just inside the cage, but outside the cage. Just talk about those business ventures a little bit as much as you can. Let people know what you have going on outside the cage.
So obviously, I started doing crypto back in 2017. My buddies were in the space, and they just told me to buy Bitcoin and Ethereum when it was like 2 grand, and then it was like Ethereum was 80, and now they're at 60 and like 1700 this morning. And I kind of got lucky with it. And then I just recently got interested in fully trading in the space, and same thing with the stock market. That's just like fun stuff for me that I do, and I kind of got lucky with it. And I have a pretty good network of people that I can talk to and advise me and help me out. And then my main source is Aper Fitness, which is a clothing company. We've had it for 3 years, and this year it kind of just really took off as far as like wholesale, and getting our quality right. We had big issues with supply chain logistics, and we finally got that stuff. And then lastly, we do media on the side for companies. So like up and coming startups and stuff, we'll shoot videos for them, manage their websites, stuff like that. My business partner and my coach Jerry, right over there, he's the real genius. I do the numbers and I run the numbers and I talk. You know.
Ever thought about NFT being that first sort of MMA guy to get into that space?
Yeah, man. So, like, for example, right now, people don't realize that Ethereum, NFTs run on Ethereum. So, right now, we're logging Ethereum because we know once people realize that NFTs are run on the Ethereum blockchain and all the transactions that are going on, as well as the scale up that Ethereum is doing, it's going to go up, right? So, those are just little cues and tips that I do that is, I have knowledge in the space, so it's fun.
For sure. I got to ask a quick question then, because I noticed on the Goat Shed Instagram page, obviously a guy who's interested in the NFT cryptocurrency game is, you know, Paul Brothers. Have you seen Jake or Logan in the? Do those guys train in the gym with you guys?
So Jake hasn't been to the gym. I don't know where he's training, but Logan is not all the time. But he came in for like a couple days, and then I don't know where he's at now. And then he'll come back when he's in Miami with Milton, to my understanding.
Looking good?
Oh, he's solid, man. I actually I have a lot of respect for Logan. I watch his podcast and I like him as a person a lot. I don't know Jake, so I can't really speak on him, but yeah, Logan when he was in the gym, he was sparring with guys and he's solid, man.
He is Richie Lewis. He takes on Danny Vega March 26th, Titan FC. You can watch that live on UFC Fight Pass. Richie, just let people know where they can find you on social media, man. Anything else you got going on? The floor is yours.
Richie_Savage on Instagram, and we're shooting a Netflix documentary right now. Law of the GOAT. Check it out.